On this episode. Have you ever stopped to wonder why two children who grew up in the same home, same rules, same parents, same dynamic, and yet they grew up to become two totally different people throughout their lives? Why is it that one may develop confidence while the other might struggle with shame? Well, this is something that maybe have been decades in the making, from needing a bottle from their parent to learning how to drive a car for the first time. This episode is going to explore Erikson's stages of psychosocial development, which is a kind of like a roadmap that helps explain how our earliest life experiences tend to mold and refine us into who we become today. Whether you are a parent, a therapist, or just someone as curious as me, understanding these stages can change the way that we see children as well as, hopefully, ourselves. Why do we think the way that we do? And what are we really thinking inside of our minds that shapes the way that we think, feel, and connect? Welcome to my podcast. I'm Andrew, a licensed marriage and family therapist and a mental health professional. Neurocurious is my podcast that explores the mind and curiosity with inspiration. From parenting and emotional development in relationships to mental health and everyday behavior, each episode is to explore the psychology we face as well as endure in real life. On this episode, we are going to discuss theorist Erikson, the stages of psychosocial development, and he explains various key periods of the human growth throughout the lifespan of development. In each of these stages, it has central psychological conflicts that can often make or break this person's identity as well as growth. And this conflict may carry out through the next stage of development when those needs are unmet. This theory can help us better understand and to explain the social experiences of relationships that shape how that individual may become throughout time. Whenever these individuals thrive as well as handle conflict effectively, it can strengthen their abilities as well. However, when needs are unmet and conflict is not handled, the development of essential skills may be weaker or less evident for that person. And I'm going to discuss in this episode what these stages are from infancy throughout adolescence to provide more context of each of these stages throughout the lifespan of development. So children who are supported throughout these stages have a better sense of identity. They also have a better sense of development, which can increase confidence, their self-esteem, which can be addressed more appropriately. Children can then develop a better sense of self and increase of efficacy. The first stage is trust versus mistrust, and this is typically between the ages of 0 to 18 months or the infancy stage. Now here's the thing, infants, they are uncertain about the world. It is very new to them, so coming into this world can be a very scary place. But trust replaces fear if they have good quality care. For infants, developing care and trust is essential. That is how they develop trust in their caregiver, because infants can become very anxious and learn to mistrust their caregiver as well if their needs are not met. For instance, when a baby is crying because of a specific need, it's often because it is for something. It is for a legitimate reason why that baby is crying. So they're starting to develop anxious symptoms when those needs are left unmet, because crying is the first form of communication for an infant. That is how they get the caregiver's attention. And whatever that cry may be, it could be for comfort, nurture, changing diaper, food, whatever it might be, there is a reason for it. So the baby is crying to get your attention. And so how is it going to be addressed? Are we going to respond as quickly as we can to see what it needs, to be able to provide comfort, nutrition, whatever that baby is not necessarily asking for because they can't, but as a caregiver, how am I able to provide the nourishment that it needs so that it can feel trust within their caregiver? Now, when the baby is left unmet, meaning the baby is crying in the middle of the night and no one's responding to it, the baby is going to cry harder, louder, and probably more higher pitch, because of the extreme need that the baby might have. And when those needs are not met, it starts to develop mistrust in the caregiver, yes, as young as infancy. The next stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. This is typically known as the early childhood stage, or between the ages of 2 to 4 years old. And in this stage, toddlers begin to practice more independence, but are sometimes afraid of failure or letting down their caregiver or parent. Toddlers need a sense of achievement to learn and to grow. They learn out of curiosity, they learn out of play, they learn from making mistakes. If a caregiver shames that child, the child begins to doubt themselves and they develop feelings of inadequacy. So here is something. When a child draws a parent a picture, they want a lot of affirmation. They want a lot of validation. Oh, this looks beautiful. This is a great picture. Look at the sun. Look at the trees. Those are lots of beautiful colors. Let me hang it up on the fridge. Yeah, that's exactly what that child needs because it actually boosts their self-esteem and efficacy that they start to feel more proud about their artwork. And so they're going to want to do it more to expound on that creativity. But the thing is, when a parent were to receive that picture and not even glance at it, just kind of like they're on the phone, oh, yeah, that looks good, the child is likely not going to be coming to you anymore to show the picture because they're not getting the validation that they need or the attention that they were hoping for. And so then they start to feel inadequate about their artwork. Maybe I'm not important enough for my dad. Maybe I'm not important enough for my mom. And here's the thing I tell parents don't freak out about spilled milk. Because the thing is, anything can be learned into a teaching opportunity. For instance, a child may want to pour their own milk into their cereal because they're trying to learn how to provide for themselves. And the thing is, the milk can be in a very large jug, it can be heavy, and so they accidentally spill. Well, they feel, oh no, I just wasted all this milk. I'm going to be in trouble. The parent might start yelling, why didn't you ask for help? Why did you spill this? Look what you have done. Well, in the child's mind, I didn't want to bother mom and dad. I wanted to be able to do this on my own. I wanted to not bother them. But now I just bother them even more by the milk. So rather than complaining about it, use this as a teaching opportunity or like a way to manage that emotion by teaching them, okay, we spilled the milk. Let's go get some paper towels. Let's wipe this up. Let's clean it up. And here we go. Let's pour the milk. Because by that way, you're teaching them how to be more productive. You're also taking the initiative by helping them with their autonomy, by being able to make those choices rather than shame and doubt. Because then, if they make a mistake, that's going to lead towards disappointing my parent or my caregiver. Then they start to feel like, oh, I'm really letting them down. It's really important to help the child through that autonomy so that anything can be turned into a teaching opportunity so that they can improve and learn a little more self-efficacy and a little more of a skill set. In the next stage, it is initiative versus guilt. And this is typically between the ages of 4 to 5 or the preschool age. And in this stage, children begin to assert themselves because they want to learn how to have a little bit more control of their life, but would feel guilty if they were dismissed by the caregiver and parent. Children strive to be independent. They need to be, such as being able to tie their own shoes or being able to dress themselves. And children need to explore and to be curious through play, but they sometimes feel guilty if their parent limits their potential. There is another theorist by the name of Lev Varkovsky who came up with what is called the zone proximal development, or the ZBD. It is being able to try to find the sweet spot by tying their shoes or by zipping up their jacket. The thing is, we need to be patient as parents. I know, I get it. We are in a rush. We got to get out of the house. We got to get them to school on time. But no, I'm tying my own shoes here and there. Let me do it. No, I want to do it. Or being able to zip up their own jacket. Come on, we're running late. Come on. And the thing is, what's happening there is that it actually increases the anxiety of the child and feel like that they are being rushed, and now they're feeling guilty because now we're late. It's because of you that we missed the bus. It's because of you. Now we're late to class, and I have to drive you because we missed the bus. That isn't good for the child. So the deal is, it's like trying to find that sweet spot. So the zone proximal development, when the child is trying to find that sweet spot, let's say tying their shoes, yeah, you got to do the loop-de-loop, and then you got to do the wrap around, and then you got to do the tuck and the under, okay? The thing is, learning how to tie your shoes is really hard. But the deal is, they want to do it. They want to learn that independence. They don't have any concept of time frame or like what time they have to get out of the house, they're just trying their best. So the thing is, it's like, oh no, let me get in. It's no, I want to do it. And then, sometimes people clash. But here's the thing: when a child is learning how to tie their shoes, they're gonna start with the loop, and then do the other loop, and then they're gonna do the wrap, and they're like, uh, I forgot. Okay, I don't remember what I'm supposed to do here. And it's like, oh, let me show you. You tuck under, and it's like, okay, tucking under. Okay, now I got it. Go, okay, go away now. Once they figure out the sweet spot, now they're able to figure out the rest. So the same thing can happen when they're trying to pronounce a word or when they're trying to figure out a math equation. Once you show them how to do it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I got it. You did enough to spark that. And that was Lev Vygotsky's theory there, that children really do try to do their best. And so you want to try to promote that initiative for that child rather than making them feel guilt. Now we're going to go into the next stage here called industry versus inferiority. And that's between the ages of 5 to 12 years old, also known as the school age. And what children are experiencing here is that children start to compare their abilities and their sense of self to others, such as their peers. And they may start to feel more inadequate about themselves if they're unable to meet those abilities. Oh, wow, this other kid is smarter than me because they handed their test up earlier. Or they're smarter than me because they got a higher grade. I can't be that smart. Children may also feel like they are capable by getting good grades and making their parents proud. But if they're not able to get that praise or they do not feel encouragement, that child may feel a sense of inferiority and may have a low self esteem. And so when they feel like their peers, their other classmates, are smarter than them, are faster than them, they start to feel like I am not adequate enough. Then they start to feel inferior. And the deal is, when they're trying to get good grades, but they're just not getting there as well as they would hope, remember that trust versus mistrust? Well, I can't go to mom and dad because I don't trust them. I'm going to get grounded if I show them my grades. And then we talk about the shame versus autonomy. Well, if I show them, they're going to ridicule me, they're going to embarrass me, they're going to punish me. And then with learning how to be a little more productive, they're going to be too embarrassed. And so they really feel that anxiety by increasing that sense of perfectionism, because in order for me to get that attention, I have to make my parents proud. And by making them proud, I really have to push myself to get that high grade, or I have to get that role. I have to be perfect in all of my endeavors, right? I cannot afford to mess up even a note on my violin. The deal is, sometimes they feel more expression based on their strengths and their accomplishments and not necessarily the limitations and failures. When the child is going through this throughout their school age, they may feel like I have to really push on my strengths and abilities in order for me to get these accomplishments. And if I don't, I am a failure. I have too many limitations and I'm not able to meet my potential. Well, the reality is they can when they are given the proper encouragement and motivation and drive to do so. But sometimes, hey, even if you came home with a B, hey, I know you worked hard. I know you studied. But look, you got a B. Let's shoot for a B plus. Let's, any way that we can try to motivate the child so that they could feel that sense of accomplishment and industry, because they try to learn from their mistakes, but when they were feeling shame and doubt from it, yeah, they're not going to be as productive as we would hope. But then kids may also use the form of industry in ways that we may not necessarily understand. They're recognizing their strengths. They're recognizing what they are good at. It may not be math, but it may be art. It may not be science, but it may be sports. And so they're going to lean more towards those strengths. But here's the thing. As parents, what are we always focusing on? Limitations. Their incapabilities. No, you have to pass science. You have to pass math. You're never going to make it to a good school. You're never going to amount to anything. Well, we don't know that. Okay? They're 12. So let's have a little bit more flexibility as a parent. And the last stage that I'm going to address in this podcast is the identity versus role confusion stage. And this is typically between the ages of 13 to 19 years old, or adolescence. In this stage, adolescents often search for a sense of ability, a sense of self, by exploring differences as well as discovering their beliefs, the morals as well as values. And in this stage, adolescents need support more than ever, and they need significant guidance from their parent or caregiver as they discover their sense of self. If they are often felt neglected or discouraged on freely expressing themselves, they feel confused about their potential and where they belong in society. Where is my place? Who am I? What is my purpose? What have I achieved? And what am I supposed to do in the next stage of my life, which is adulthood? And sometimes it could be a very scary and a very confusing state because sometimes in their minds, I'm old enough to act like an adult, as they would say, act your age, but at the same time, I'm young enough to be considered a minor. I'm not old enough to vote, but I'm old enough to drive. I'm old enough to get a job and pay taxes, but I'm not old enough to make other financial decisions. So this can be a very confusing state in their life, and trying to find out where do they belong, because it can be scary. Who do I want to become religiously? Who do I want to become politically? And they may decide this is who I'm going to become for my career. I'm going to be a doctor, a lawyer, a musician, whatever it might be. And so it's really important that parents are even more involved, because through these stages in life, remember, the child is being molded and refined into who they are becoming as a person now. So throughout these earlier years, they try to cleave onto their parent. Sadly, though, in this stage in life, they're more leaning towards away from the parent. And this is the time that the parent wants to spend that time with them, because they know that time is coming close. According to Dr. John Gottman in his book, Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child, there are 4 different types of parenting styles: the dismissive parent, the disapproving parent, the laissez-faire parent, and the emotion coaching parent. The dismissive parent often feels that their child's feelings are not important, that it's often dismissed or neglected. The parent often would disengage or ignore the child's feelings and may ridicule and might even make light of the child's emotions, teasing them, making fun of them, and then believes that the child's negative emotions reflect badly on the parent. You're making me look bad as your father. Or things like, come on, grow up, be a man. That's not how men act, right? Well, it doesn't always show to be effective for a child when they're told to bottle up their emotions. The disapproving parent believes that behaviors should be time limited. It's okay to cry, but not too long. It's okay to get hurt, but walk it off. And sometimes those negative emotions must be controlled. Go to your room. Don't go to your friend's house. Go downstairs. And then oftentimes with obedience, it's expected with authority. Stop acting that way, they may say. Or act more your age, they may say. Because they believe that negative emotions are a bad character of trait. And then we have the laissez-faire parent. The laissez-faire is French for hands off, touche pas, oui. So freely accepts all expressions with emotions from the child, but does not necessarily teach on how to problem solve certain methods to the child, such as critical thinking or emotional intelligence. They kind of like brush it off. They just let them kind of do their own thing, but is there when they need them, and if they're able to offer what they may need. But this type of parent does not necessarily help the child problem solve, just kind of fix their problems, and then offers little guidance on those behaviors, because they may not necessarily know. They may try their best. And then finally, Dr. Gottman talked about the emotion coaching parent. These types of parents values the child's negative emotions as an opportunity for intimacy, being able to develop a sense of connectiveness, interpersonal relations, and effectiveness, right? Being able to enhance the parent-child interaction. These types of parents are also more aware of the values that the child may be feeling when it comes to their emotions. When they're sad, they help them process. When they're upset, they help them process that as well. And they may see that the world may have negative emotions, but may recognize that it is an important way to address this as a parent. So they do not necessarily say to the child how they should feel, but help them process what it is that they are feeling and then help them manage through that. Okay, so let me give you a couple of parenting tips here. When it comes to co-parenting, when caregivers are actively involved, a child feels more loved and also more supported. When caregivers can effectively co-parent their child, it enhances relationship satisfaction as well as reducing long-term risks for the child, such as delinquency or defiance. So if there's like a high conflict divorce or a separation, and sometimes even just co-parenting in the home, when parents are able to get along with each other, that they recognize the needs and the benefits for the child and what is going to be in the best interest of the child, they actually do much better. Another tip is enhancing the parent-child relationship, because a child's relationship with a caregiver is linked to their overall well-being throughout their lifespan, because it may help with their social skills and then be able to work on positive relationships, improving academic performance, and boosting emotional intelligence, as well as promoting developmental enhancements. Another parenting tip is to remove coercion in the home. Unhappy caregivers and parents can negatively affect the parent-child relationship. It could also cause dysfunction in the home. Caregivers and parents, they must avoid coercion at all costs. This may include, but not limited to, criticism and blaming others. Also, avoid conflict and emotional disengagement, especially in the home. It doesn't benefit anyone. As we wrap up this episode, remember that nothing is absolute and that this is a journey of development. When we learn to encounter barriers and detours, the destination can remain the same as we try to get back on track. Erikson's theory can remind us how important it is to not just be physically attending, but also psychologically attending to our child. They need us more than you know, and you can be a part of that journey as well. It is never too late. I hope that this podcast helped you. Please consider sharing it with a parent, a friend, or someone that you feel like might need it. And remember, the more curious we become about the mind, the more we understand each other. Until next time, be good to yourself. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not to be a replacement for therapy. If you're struggling and need support, I highly encourage you to reach out to a licensed mental health professional in your area.